Hello, everybody. This is Anna and Brian from Amata World Podcast, and today we have our next guest for the gaming episode, Alan Wallat, who is a game designer from London. How are
Thank
you,
you very
Alan?
much. Yes, I'm very well. How are you doing?
Great. It's a pleasure to have you here. And maybe for our listeners, can you give like a quick introduction to your background and how did you end up working with games and designing games?
Sure. So I am a board game designer, and I studied mechanical engineering at university, but realized that wasn't for me. Um, so I went on a sort of a bit of a crazy journey trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Um, uh, Ended up discovering a passion for board games. I sort of realized in 2022 that some of my happiest moments during childhood were playing board games and card games with my grandmothers on both sides of the family. And I think a lot of people did some soul searching during COVID. So I thought, okay, in my life, I have to at least design a game. Let's see if I can do that just for fun. And one thing led to another. It kind of snowballed from there. I fell in love with the process. And a couple of years later, I got my first game signed by a company.
Can you tell us a little bit more about, I guess, the process of building your first game? Like, how did you get into it? And sort of, I know a lot of people love board games, but not everyone actually goes about to make board games. So, can you tell us what actually drove you to take that extra step further, and how did you go about it?
Sure. So I guess prior to actually starting to design the game, I found a book, an audio book called The Neuroscience of Self-Discipline, which basically mentioned that self-discipline is, if you want to be disciplined, you want to be internally motivated towards something. If you're externally motivated by people telling you what you should do, it's much harder to bring yourself to do these things. So when I mentioned the soul searching, I wrote 5 dreams of what I would like to do if money was no object. And one of them came out to be, design a game and receive it in the post. So that was the kind of ember or spark that I just kind of kept feeding with playing board games and things like that. When it came to actually designing my first game, it was really hard. It's still really hard, but I kind of sat on it for a while. I knew I wanted to make a game, but I wasn't sure what. And it took me a few months to come up with a concept of what I wanted the game to be about. And this was a sort of making a sort of medieval traveling band of musicians and actors and performers, and playing them with cards somehow, gathering them as you go, and seeing if you could perform for various lords and ladies. It took another several set of months to actually come up with a mechanic of how I thought that was going to be interesting. And I thought it would be interesting with debt. Like if your characters move far or perform, they get tired and hungry as a form of debt. And so basically you're managing your fatigue in order to make your performers perform. And if you can't do it, you won't get a large amount of money from the lords and ladies. I took this to a playtesting group in London after, I made the typical mistakes that most board gamers make when they first make a game. Spend a bunch of money on like printing it for the first prototype, testing it, and then realizing 90% of it has to change. But trial by fire is the best way to learn. And when I took it to this playtesting group in London, under the umbrella Playtest UK, there were lots of other designers there, and someone said, "This has legs. You know, there's something here. Keep going with it." So that was my first experience designing a game.
Maybe can you tell us a little bit more about your current projects as well? Because that was like the first game, but you do you have like some I remember I already tried it.
Sure. Yes.
That's right, yeah.
So just as a caveat, that I never got that one published, the one about Lords and Ladies. It was more of a stepping stone into the design process, and I reached my sort of limit as a designer. I didn't know how to progress it further because I didn't have the skills. So I just kind of continued to design different games with the hope of bringing them to a point where they could be published. So currently, the one you just mentioned is War of the Toads. That is a 2-player head-to-head card game about capturing your opponent's samurai toads as hostages. It's a tiny micro card game, which means that you can fit it in your pocket and play anywhere. You know, we played together on set, which was nice, pretty fun. That is a game that I'm intending to self-publish. So I've had a couple games picked up by companies, and it's usually a bit like a book deal or a music deal. They give you a small advance. They take on board lots of risk in terms of they have to do the artwork, manufacturing, marketing and things, but they give you a royalty in return. I wanted to break into the industry full time, so I decided to make a very low risk card game called War of the Toads, which is a style called an 18 card game. You have a limited set of components, just 18 cards, and you have to make an interesting game within that. It's a really interesting design challenge, and there's some brilliant games. For example, Tussie Mussy by a world-famous designer called Elizabeth Hargrave, about gifting flowers in Victorian England, which set that in motion for me. It was a heavy inspiration.
So what about any other sort of other board games that you've published? Tell us a bit more about some of those. Because I know you've worked on a few before that you've also sort of, I guess, released out into the wild.
Sure, yes. So the first game that I got signed is called Posers. And I actually signed it about 2.5 years ago. It's not out yet. It's coming out in May. There's a long process to releasing board games, much like it is in the publishing world. Publishers have release windows that they plan maybe 2 years in advance, and each year something new is coming out for their season. So because of the manufacturing timelines, because they like to test internally, to make sure that the game is up to scratch, almost like having an editor. You know, we will tweak a few things. Yeah, it's coming out in May. So Posers, I signed it to Board Cubator, which are an independent studio in the Czech Republic. They're best known for a game called Project L, which is essentially competitive Tetris, the board game. It's you're placing tiles and trying to complete sets, special like little puzzles, so you get more tokens in the future. It's widely regarded as a very, very addictive game. So I was absolutely stoked when they wanted to sign posers, which is basically it's your typical Christmas party game that works with family of all ages. It's like charades, but with a traitor or an imposter. Everyone is given the same card. Is given a card with the same key word on it. This is a phrase of some sort. And you have to strike a pose that captures that key phrase. For example, it could be trip to the moon. And the first person puts on a space helmet. The second person tries to do a low gravity walk. The thing is, you've got to do something unique. So if someone's done your pose, you have to think of something new. But the catch is that one of you has been given a blank card. You are the imposter and you don't know the key phrase. Your job is to fit in with the rest of the group and not be spotted. At the end, you go 3, 2, 1, and you point at who you think the imposter was, i.e. the poser, and laugh, because sometimes it's extremely obvious this person has no idea what we're doing. Sometimes you point at the wrong person. And so if the poser slips through undetected, they score some points. If you guess correctly, you score some points. And within a few, I'd say within a few seconds, no one really cares about the scoring. It's more about being really goofy, really silly with your friends.
Yeah, just like having fun. But yeah, I guess it would be really good, like the Christmas, as you mentioned, Christmas game. But
Absolutely.
I'm just curious, like, where do you get the inspiration and the ideas? Is it like from, as well, what affected to you, like when like childhood, when you played certain games with your family, as you mentioned, like with your both like grandmas, and
Yes. Yeah, really,
or
really good
is yeah.
question. It's changed over time. I'd say certain games have certain little sparks of inspiration. One of my favorite designers is Andrew Beardsley. He's a friend of mine, and he designs from emotion. So there's a particular emotion that he wants to capture, and during playtesting, he will steer the rules to elicit the best emotion. And I thought, when I first saw that being done, I was like, okay, that's brilliant. That's essentially what we're trying to do. We're not exactly movie makers, but we are trying to create an emotion with our experience. What is the key experience you want players to feel when you're playing the game? So that's something that is key to where I come up with my games now. But oftentimes I'm inspired by other games. I've seen a mechanic that is fresh for me. I've never seen that done before. And the inspiration for posers came from a fantastic game called Shifty-Eyed Spies. I'll explain the feeling as opposed to the game itself. When I played this game, I sat down with a group of total strangers, and by the end, I felt like we were like best friends. The game is about you're all spies, and you're trying to communicate to someone else. You've been given their card secretly that you're supposed to meet them at a location. And these locations are on the table. There's like a little water fountain, a figurine, and a bookcase and other things. You need to communicate to them whilst not being spotted by anyone else that you're supposed to meet there. How does the game do that? It does it with a physical action, winking. If you catch someone else winking, you can intercept them. If you're not spotted winking and the other person realizes you are trying to communicate with them, you arrange to meet at a location. Honestly, it was the most fun I'd ever had with a group of strangers. Start off like meerkats, twisting your head, trying to detect other people winking, and then slyly trying to wink at other people. And winking is it is extremely specific human activity that signals friendship or knowledge, shared knowledge between two people. So if you wink at a stranger, you know, like you might wink at a stranger because you think you both spotted something funny, and you're like, oh yeah, like secret handshake, secret nod. So that experience, there's something physical that bonded people together, was kind of the core inspiration of Posers. And I mixed that with a game called The Fake Artist Goes to New York, where one person doesn't know the key word, and everyone else is drawing a picture that helps capture this keyword. But I turned mine physical.
And it's just like it's quite interesting because you mentioned a lot of times like the connection aspect of like the board games, and probably like as well right now with in the age of AI, it's just like a lot of people are like thinking about where like we will go if like AI will take our jobs, but as well as just like being more like sort of like a human, like we will seek more connections and like in-person experiences, what like board games as well could provide. So where do you feel like it's heading right now? Are we I'm gonna have more board games?
Absolutely. So board games are a wonderful antidote to too much screen time. Board games definitely saw a rise during COVID because, you know, you're on your computer all day. I mean, almost everyone is these days, unless you have a manual labor job, and even then, technology is encroaching in certain areas. Yeah, it's just a way to reconnect with your family, your friends, without technology. That we call it analog gaming, and it's just on the rise because people in the age of AI, people are looking for authentic moments and a real connection, and board games definitely offer that. I'd say at the moment, in the sort of tabletop world, there's three main types of games, I'd say. There's board games, which are your typical, if you want to be very simplistic, Monopoly, Snakes and Ladders, or Posers, these types of games. Then there's miniatures games, which are Warhammer type little figurines. There's a bunch of those. And then there's also RPGs, which are role-playing games, theatre of the mind. Think sort of Dungeons and Dragons, where a group of friends get together and almost have a sort of a fantasy story that they build themselves. Those three things are generally on the rise, and I've heard someone else say that at any time one of them is rising, one of them is staying still, and the other one is sort of shrinking. And they go through these cycles. At the moment, I think the miniatures are peaking. If your game has miniatures in them, they sell pretty well. I think the RPGs and the role-playing games are sort of on the rise. There's more interesting games breaking the mold and bringing new players in. Board games seems to be, compared to the other two, not growing as fast, partly because of recent tariff changes and shipping costs and things like that. So, but it's certain as a whole, they're always growing. They're always getting larger. And I think, yeah, in the future, we'll definitely see more and more unique board games and experiences.
Just well, like while we're on the topic of AI, like are you using AI in any way of like helping like design or like test or like
Yeah, it's
any sort
really
of way?
interesting you say that. So in terms of generative AI, there are lots of questionnaires put out by board game design groups, and generally speaking, players and audiences in a very analog world are very anti-AI for their various reasons. Within the design world, specifically with playtesting, there is a little bit of AI use. People might generate some imagery to make placeholder artwork. Personally, I don't advocate for that, more because it's for me, I love seeing art, like art made by people, and I would I would never discover the types of art if I was just using AI, which generates things I've already seen. Discovering artists, historical artists as well as contemporary ones, is part of the joy. So I don't personally use that. But in terms of testing, there are some people who are using certain models like ChatGPT and things like that just to run through a few scenarios. But I don't think it's particularly a strong way to design a game, because you are essentially creating an experience for humans, and you need to know how the humans are going to react to this. Players react and play your game in a way that you could never predict, which is great. It's really fun, but it's very hard to involve AI in that system, for which I think is nice. On the other side of things, if you have heard of Deep Blue or Deep Mind, these are AI agents. Deep Blue was the first chess computer that beat one of the top chess player at the time. I can't remember when that was. Possibly 1990s, maybe earlier. That type of AI has existed for a long time. These are sort of chess algorithms or other types of algorithms. And I actually partnered with a spin out from Queen Mary University, London. The spin out's called Tabletop R&D. And they'd built a more traditional algorithmic model for testing your game, which spits out a bunch of data. So it's not generative AI. It doesn't use tons of modeling and loads of data and loads of energy, which then has to be redone every time there is a new change to the rules. This is more of a, like, you program in the rules, and the AI agents will play the game and spit out a bunch of data, which then you can use to balance your game. And I was one of the first. It was just very lucky timing. I was one of the first guinea pigs for them, and they made me a co-author on their paper about AI-assisted board game testing. And now they have a fair few clients as well.
And what was that experience like? Working with this algorithmic way to, I guess, playtest your games. Has that sort of changed how you approach, designing games?
In how would I say it? So firstly, the experience was great. It was fairly on in my design career. Not that it's particularly long, but it's just like at the beginning. Meeting them, they took me and my design seriously. I took them seriously, and so we sort of helped each other in that way. And I ended up writing an extremely comprehensive rule set for quite a complicated game called Serious Smugglers, which was about landing on certain moons and sharing resources with people who'd landed on the same moons as you, splitting them. Or if you landed alone, you'd get everything to yourself. So it's like a mind game about where do you go. And that was really interesting. It was quite challenging to write such a comprehensive set of rules because these have to be programmed in. Normally, when you play a game and you're demonstrating it to people and you're playtesting it, you don't have a rule set. You're making it up on the fly because there's a lot of time commitment to do this. And you might just scrap entire sections of the game because it's too complicated or it's too fiddly. Actually, it was really helpful writing these rules because it got me into the process of, making technically, if you've designed a game but you haven't written the rules, all you have is an idea. And so you need to be able to write your rules at least to an understandable level to be able to pitch them to companies. So the experience was really, really useful from my side. And I think they got a lot of good practice from me as well.
Thanks. And I guess as someone who's kind of worked in this industry and you understand where the trends are going, do you have any advice for anyone who wants to sort of build their own board games, who might be inspired to work on something right now? Like, should they go for, I don't know, you said this ever shifting trend? Is it a good time to jump on miniature figure board games or some other style?
I would say firstly, design what you want to design. If you enjoy the process, then you're already benefiting from design. If you've always wanted to design a game, now is one of the best times. The industry is always growing. If I had some advice for a new designer, I'd say bring it outside of your friends and family to playtesting groups as soon as you can, and get that initial feedback where it's critical, but it's trying to help you improve. It's all well and good getting validation and like, oh, this is great, but you're going to need a critical eye. You're going to need people to tell you what's wrong with the game for it to improve, to get it to a pitchable standard. As my own personal suggestion, start small. This never happens. Everyone does a huge game to begin with because you know what your tastes are like, and you like these big grand board games. But in terms of where the industry is going, because there's uncertainty about shipping, fuel, and the costs have risen dramatically because of tariffs and things like that. I think a lot of board game companies are actually looking at smaller, tighter experiences that use a smaller set of components like cards and things. So if you want to go for that area, that's completely fine. But I recommend reading a blog by Ellie Dix, who's one of my friends, and she has a series of blogs about, so you've designed your first game, now what? There are lots of people who are at that stage. They've designed a game, but they're not sure where to go. And there's also another great article about what is your ambition? Are you doing it for your friends, for your family, for yourself? Are you intending to self-publish, go into mass market board games, or the hobby market? There's so many different areas that you could explore. But the main thing is just have fun.
Amazing. And do you have any hopes and predictions for the future of this field of board games and your own project as well?
Yeah. So, well, I hope my project War of the Toads does well. I'm going to UK Games Expo to showcase the game, and I'm gathering feedback from players. This is if you happen to be at UK Games Expo, come along. With my own games, or what I would like to see in the future, I think specialist experiences that capture certain emotions that can't be done in other media. Each medium, like whether it's movies, comic books, board games, has something unique to their medium that cannot be replicated elsewhere. I think board games really excel at this, but there is a tendency for lots of war games to be dudes on a map or fantasy things, and we're seeing broader and broader genres and being taken into board games. Things about gardening, flowering, baking cakes, eating food. There's an interesting game called Alice is Missing, which is, I'd say, RPG/board game about someone who has literally gone missing, and it's an emotional roller coaster for the players who are involved. So I'd love to see more unique emotional experiences in board games. And one in particular that I'm hoping to design at some point is a lot of the war games in board games are sort of flippant with the idea that people are just being sent into meat grinders. They're little, cubes. What if there is a war game where each player has a name, and when they die, it's catastrophic to your troop as a whole in terms of mental health, and the toll it takes. There are things like Undaunted, Normandy that have soldiers with names, and it's crushing when one of these characters dies. But I'd like to see that mental toll integrated into the mechanics of the game to represent, how damaging war is to the average person.
And I think it's just a quick follow-up. I usually ask our guests this question, but is there any kind of problem in the world that you think the board games can actually raise awareness or something? Apart from the emotional, the you mentioned, and it's just and definitely the connection, but is there something that you're really passionate about, or where you're just waking up and oh my God, this is what lights you up? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. This is this is quite funny. What lights me up is, at the moment, is social deduction games. I love trying to read people, trying to get into their minds, or being read by another person. Social deduction, if you're not sure, you take on a particular role. You might be a good guy or a bad guy, and someone's trying to guess whether you're lying or not through through the mechanics of the game, or how you're acting. And this is where board games and video games differ, because your ability to tell a lie in a video game might be dependent on you pressing a button, whereas in board games you have no avatar to hide behind. It is you who has to do the lying. And a lot of people find this emotionally intense and steer clear of it for good reasons. But I love it. I love the stress of being caught out in a lie. I think it's really fun. And one of the interesting things is, in the board game industry, I think there's a higher proportion of autistic people in the population. There's lots of games about trains and things like that, but also these specific set of rules allow autistic people to interact and engage with other people because the set of rules are really clear. As far as I'm aware, for autistic people, it's quite challenging normal social interactions because they're trying to assess all of the rules at the same time. When should I speak? When is it time to let another person speak? How do I say goodbye? Do I go in for a kiss on the cheek, shake their hand, go for a hug? What's the rule that works for this person? So board games offer a sort of, what's the word? Like a safe space for autistic people to have social interactions, and social deduction games are a way to try and deduce the rules. How is this person behaving? Are they telling the truth? Are they telling a lie? That for me lights me up, and I really enjoy it.
Awesome. I think it's probably a good place to wrap up. So I think before we leave, I'd like to leave the last minute for yourself, Glenn, for any last plugs. Like if people want to find out a bit more about your work, where can they find you? How can they reach out if they have any questions?
Sure. Yes. So my company, my publishing house for War of the Toads is called R Games, spelt AAAR Games. If you type that in on Google, I'm sure it will come up. On Instagram, the handle is r.games. If you type in War of the Toads board game or Posers board game, it will come up. If you're interested in working with me, helping you write your rules, I do freelance rules writing and editing services as well as board game development. And you can find my portfolio at aw-designs. Let me just get it right.
Don't worry, we'll
We'll just,
put everything in
the
the
links.
description.
But
So
yeah,
yes.
thank you so much.
Thank you
It
very
was
much.
amazing. Yeah.
It's been great
And I
having you
hope,
here. And yeah,
fingers crossed for like more games to come, like and more
Absolutely.
publishing.
Well, thank you very much
Yeah,
for
looking-
having me. I
Yeah.
had a really good time.
I'm looking forward to the release of Posers. So
Yes,
the
in
official
May.
release.
It'll be available on the eShop. So please sign up and get a copy.
Well, definitely like then
Nice.
we can include this in description, like the link for that. Okay,
Great.
great.
Cool.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very
Thanks,
much.
All right. Thank you very much. And to all listeners, thank you for listening up to this point and have a great day.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.